Okay. We good to go, maybe? Okay, good, thank you. Okay, I'd like to call our meeting to order today and thank everyone for coming down in person, as well as a couple of folks we have remotely. We've got, three or four on remote here. So, we'll see how this first doing it split works. I think we'll have better success than when we did it with each of us sitting at our laptops back several months ago when we tried that. I'd like to just jump right in and ask for approval for the consent agenda approval. Well, first let's approve the agenda. Anything that needs to be added to the agenda? Anyone? No? Okay, then I'd like to ask that we approve the consent agenda. If I could get a motion to approve it?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, Chris, and a second? Okay, Gail. And all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Any noes? No. Ayes, it passes. And I was going to say, do the consent agenda we just did? Yes. I got to do the agenda too, don't I? Okay, sorry about that. If I could get someone to make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I move we approve the
Okay,
agenda.
Chris? Second?
Second.
Sharon? And all in favor of approving the agenda as submitted? Aye. Opposed? No? Okay, and that passes. And I think we wait to do the third one. Your Honor, right? No reason to do that right now. Okay, let's just jump right in then. First off, do we have any public comments? Anyone here or online? No, we don't. Okay, then we'll just jump right into reports. And let's start with, let's see, Ruth, are you doing the Friends one for us? I see you waving at us.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can.
Okay,
Really
excellent. Yes, I am here today and I will give you the Friends report. Not much to report. We technically are scheduled for a board meeting next Wednesday, but I am not available, so I'm waiting to hear back from other board members if someone wants to hold that meeting in my absence, or if we'll not postpone it or not have a meeting at all. As of the last meeting that we had, which was still online, we still did not have board members who wanted to be in the library yet to do some of our activities. So we are still lagging in being able to do certain things. There's a few of us who have been in there. We're shelving, we're taking in donations by appointment only. And we've requested that the library staff alert people if they ask if they can bring donations in, that to contact us through our email, which is on our website. They also have the email. We do not have our regular volunteers to check our phone messages, so that is being done sporadically. Since several of us are not able to be in the library, but once a week or so, to pick up the actual voicemail messages from the phone in the special collections. But we are slowly taking in some new donations, and we are slowly trying to formulate a members event at some point this summer. But again, it's been hard to get some of our volunteers back on board because things have been a little unsure still, but I think we're coming out of that, and I'm hoping that later this summer we'll get going. I am prompting the board to think about when we will have our next annual meeting, which hopefully will be maybe late September, October sometime, and just need to get started on that. I think that's really it for real business. We're working on a newsletter, should come out mid-June, early July. So that will be our summer newsletter. And that's it. Okay. Any questions?
Any questions, Ruth? No? Okay. Ruth, one thing I was just going to touch on, I know we're going to be doing, y'all are going to be doing a book sale. I think you're talking about in the fall, right?
Yeah, we aim to do our regular fall book sale, which is the first weekend of November. So it's a ways off yet.
Okay. One thing I was just going to ask if, as y'all do that book sale, if it's possible to really look at the inventory and see what has not sold after multiple sales. Just as we get into doing the facilities work, one of the questions I know is going to be how much room do we need to leave as we do things? How much do they need to design for the friends to keep books? And, you know, I guess if things haven't sold after 2 or 3 sales, you know, they probably aren't going to sell. So we just sort of need to start looking at that and seeing if we can limit what we ask for friends in that. So anyway, that's just one quick thing that was on my list. Anyone else have anything? Yeah. Okay. Let's jump on into Susan and the foundation.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here in person with everybody today. It's lovely to meet people face to face. So the foundation, we have crafted a grant strategy for the next few months to prepare us for federal, state, city, and private dollars that are going to be offered. Our focus is on infrastructure, our book collection, children's learning, and broadband. We've been working on the community survey, which Scott will delve into a little bit later, but that's being finalized and it will be disseminated on various platforms in June. And our plan is to meet up with city council members before the survey goes out to bring them up to speed on the library's efforts and bring them in early to what's going on. Regarding grant activity, the foundation did apply for a grant from the ALA COVID Library Relief Fund. Our $50,000 ask is to update our book collection through a DEI lens. Grant awards will be announced on June 23rd, and funds must be expended by December 31st, 2021. The foundation submitted a request to Dominion Energy in support of both the YAVA program for spring of 2022 and the RVA Reads program this year. We'll keep you posted on those results. Finally, we submitted an LOI to Robbins Foundation in their third and final community-focused grant cycle of 2021. Based on Robbins' focus on children and education, the ask is for the RVA Reads program, which aligns with 2 of the Robbins focus areas. Finally, if you shop on Amazon, please use Amazon Smile to benefit the Richmond Public Library and ask your friends to do the same. The board retreat is coming up Saturday, September 11th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the auditorium downstairs. Coffee and a continental breakfast will be available from 8:30 to 9. Please don't be late. We will be starting promptly at 9. And as we get closer to the event, we'll distribute the agenda and supporting information needed for our conversations that day. If you have any questions in between now and then, please reach out either to Marshall Pearsall or myself. And our next full board meeting for the foundation for general information is June 6th, next Wednesday. Any questions? Comments?
Sounds like you started fast. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Susan really has. Okay, thank you, Susan. That filled us in really well. Scott, did you want to jump into administrative report?
If there weren't any questions on the consent agenda of any of the items, the statistics or the various reports, I can hit some of the highlights. I mean, I guess the biggest thing I explained in there were the COVID reopening details. The governor changed track about 2 weeks ago. He announced that mask wearing was no longer a requirement for vaccinated people, and I included in here the information of what we stopped doing, what we're continuing to do, and then how we're kind of managing this transition from full closure to partial reopening to getting more open. This Friday, the governor is supposed to announce more adjustments. I believe some of the capacity limits in buildings and activities and gathering are supposed to be dropped. The emergency mask mandate, I believe, goes through June, but managing how we handle that in our space, we're just we're following what the CDC, the governor, and the state and VDH are saying. So that information is contained in the package. So if he changes the limits on gatherings and capacity, we'll start restoring furniture to our spaces, lifting the limits of how many people can be in this space. We're not having a problem really managing that at our locations. And we'll also start allowing people to reserve meeting rooms and study rooms. So going back to kind of regular opening. The things that we'll continue to do and kind of as we have been is programming. We don't have a lot of in-person programming and large events scheduled for the next 3 months. We have virtual programming. We have summer reading program events and other various events that we're going to hold outside or with limits. And we're going to carry on that path and really start focusing on the fall for returning to more in-person and that sort of stuff. That will also give us time to fill some of our vacancies and see where we're at. So that's how we're managing reopening. Are there any questions on that? Any concerns? All right. The other big piece is in your thing is the survey. This is a survey that was developed with a meeting that the Facilities Committee met with Steinberg, Hart, and KEI last month. I'll let Janet talk a little bit more about that meeting, but the big product of that meeting was a survey that will ask our community for feedback on what they want to see in their library, what they want to see happen. That is included in the packet. We're converting that into an electronic survey as well as a paper survey. We're seeking some kind of prizes and incentives to get people to fill it out. So squirrels tickets, kickers tickets, VMFA, Science Museum, Children Museum, packages that people can, if they enter in a survey or if they complete one, we'll have a drawing at the end to be an incentive to gather feedback. It's a nice opportunity for us to support those education partners in the community and activities in the community. Also kind of gives people some incentives that, hey, I'm ready to get out of my house and get out of COVID, so maybe here's a chance to do something. So this will all take place during the month of June. Simultaneously, I'm going to contact our council members and the mayor's office and share this survey with them and ask them for feedback and ask them to promote it as well. So my big ask from you all will be that I need you all to see if you can contact 10 people and deliver 10 surveys at least, or get as many people as you can to give us feedback, because all of this feedback will come back to Steinberg Hart, but we'll also use it in terms of creating our strategic plan. So that'll be the feedback that we get from that. So any questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
So I just looked at it for 2 seconds, which means I'm not saying anything thorough or probably important. But I know meeting rooms is a big issue in libraries. And on this checklist on the second page, the first one, there's not a category, do you need to use meeting rooms? And most new libraries are adding meeting rooms,
Okay.
not circulation tables. So just a heads up, there might be other things that are missing, but that to me was a big one.
Okay, that's super. That's why we're sharing this.
You know, Chris, you mentioned that. I don't know if everyone saw Marshall sent out from the foundation article about the new DC branch library. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was one of the many things about it really fascinating. One thing though, Chris, I thought was interesting was they have a separate entrance to one of their meeting rooms so that people can actually use it when the rest of the library is not open. You don't have to keep the whole building as tightly secured.
That was a brilliant point, because when Northern Virginia redid theirs, each and every library arranged for a separate entrance to one meeting room. So I almost think that is, at least for that area, standard practice.
Yeah.
Good catch.
That comes in handy sometimes.
I will say I've had experience with that.
Yeah.
You still have to have staff in the building.
You do.
You do.
You do.
So
You just don't need as much
there's-
staff.
You just don't need as much staff.
And you don't have to clean the whole building and make,
Yeah.
it's funny, I got exposed to it, my kids were in high school with Maggie Walker. And for years, they used the meeting room for the board meetings and things upstairs. and started getting too much attendance for that, so they started using the auxiliary classroom that had an outside entrance and the rest of the school could be closed, and it was so much easier to get people in and out, even when school was open. People could come in quickly and leave and not have to sign into the main school building and whatnot. So I think just that idea works well if it's possible. It doesn't take all the issues away. You still need security, obviously.
Well, you still need security and manpower and help, like working the PA system or the audio-visual system. And so that's something I think we need to visit in terms of how we provide that service, because we almost need dedicated staff that manages that and maintains that space and works as the intermediary for all of that stuff.
And the issue of a separate entrance came up for large discussion in the meeting with the architects, primarily because of the current layout of the building and ADA access. So that adds another challenging element.
Yeah.
For
So
some
the
entrances.
experience in Northern Virginia is it's cyclical. There are times where there's a lot of Sunday meetings and you need to be there to open up. It is not habitual.
Yeah.
So,
It probably ebbs and flows with the cycle of our business. So summer's kind of back down, fall, winter, holidays, back
so
down.
they do an ad
increase.
hoc. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's particularly important if we can arrange it sometimes with the hours, library hours being somewhat thin right now because of budget, that to some extent we're allowing people to use a public meeting room at times where the public's not that available.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, so it's
Or they want to stay in the building later
Later.
than we have access. And
right.
so,
That's what I
like,
mean. It's a
Yeah, that's been a challenge in this location particularly.
But especially if we want to be community facing.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to do what's easiest for us as library staff. We
Right.
want to do what the community needs done. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely there, Chris. Okay, Scott, other things?
I think that's the highlights of my report.
Okay. Did you want to touch on HR and the budget that got approved the other day at all from, do we have any info on that yet even? I haven't talked to you about it.
I can provide that during the finance committee with
Okay.
Garrett.
Okay,
That's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't know whether,
Can I ask one other question? I'm sorry. Are we going to provide that in Spanish too? And
Yes, we
if
have a
so,
Spanish
are we-
version.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. And are we going to ask, do you need translation services at any, would it be helpful?
Yeah, we have the city has a program that has like an online, like not online, but there's a telephone number and we can call and assist people with translation services like that. In fact, Clay had, the architect provided us a Spanish language version of this. We had our branch manager at Broad Rock, who speaks Spanish and interprets, review it as well, and I think we ran it through
Good
multicultural
job.
affairs. So I believe we have a Spanish version going up on our,
Okay.
on the survey.
Okay.
But yeah, that's, 7% of our population we need to pay attention to.
And it's a growing population.
Yep, that's right, yep. So yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, going to move on. Scott, thank you for that. Into the board reports, and frankly, I don't have a whole lot to say today that we're not going to cover in other discussions when we get to the strategic plan and some of those types of things. I will say, I want to once again just congratulate the library staff on doing such a great job of getting through COVID. Obviously, no one wants to do a George W. and put a mission accomplished sign out or anything. But, I think we could all feel a little bit more comfortable right now. It's nice to see everyone's faces, whether masked or not, here in the room. And the library staff has just been really good about keeping everyone safe while giving access. And it's great to be out with further access now. Let's go ahead and jump right into the Finance Committee meeting. Garrett, did you want to do that from, Scott can supplement you there?
Well, that sounds great. And again, good afternoon, everyone. I wish I could be there. I'm traveling for work, but I will see you guys on the 23rd of next month. I think a few things are probably going to overlap with Scott and myself, because of course, the budget for FY 2022 was actually passed last Friday, May the 24th. City Council adopted a $772.8 million budget for fiscal year and that goes into effect, of course, July the 1st. One thing I did just want to point out from a high level is that the $160 million that they are expecting to receive from the Federal American Rescue Plan was not included within that budget. So I think, we're still going to continue to tackle that and look for ways in which we can provide as much influence as possible for additional funding to be provided to the Richmond Public Library when those funds become available. Scott.
Yeah, Garrett, it's kind of been, it's been a lot of meetings and a lot of discussion, and the council didn't really change anything. The CIP passed as was presented. We still have 2 pages in the CIP. They don't have a lot of funding. There's no funding for 22 in there right now, going out, because we didn't have any projects to put in. There's some reserve funding from 21 that we're spending to do the master plan, but we have no requests in there for the next few years. Hopefully, once we step through the master plan with the Steinberg Hart, we have some numbers to give them this fall, so that will go into next year's CIP. So that request can appear in there. In terms of the budget, it appears as though the council has passed the mayor's budget as presented with just a little bit of an increase. They adjusted their revenue projection, and that's the money that council earmarked for a couple different things, but they left everything that the mayor presented the same. So our budget in terms of 22 was adopted at 4.8 million for personnel and 1.17 for operations. So that compares to that's for 22. For 21, it's 5.7 million total. It's a little bit of an increase of about $400,000. So that was the money that the mayor put in there for the comp and class plan. But what council did was they changed that, and they kept the money where it's at, but they earmarked it differently. So they are providing a 3.25% pay increase across the board that will become effective in October. And then they will also adjust certain positions to the median of the pay range. And at this point, we're not sure how all that is going to work. But that was the change to the mayor's budget, the significant change in terms of how that pay plan will get implemented. That was the big thing. There was a lot of discussion at City Council on police and fire. They moved them to steps on their pay plan. And there was a lot of comments from the police and fire calling in. But that's where we're at right now. So essentially the 9% cut was passed through again. So we have another 9% cut that we're looking at. I don't know how the American Protection Act will impact us. I'm guessing that will go directly towards a lot of one-time funding. I don't anticipate them changing departmental budgets, personnel, or operations with that money, but I could be wrong. I'm only speculating. So that's where we're at right now. So my recommendation for now is to continue with the public service hours through the first of the year, and then see where we're sitting in terms of that. The real kicker on this is that they still have our positions frozen. So out of on the second page of our sheet, we have 75% of our positions funded, 25% of our positions unfunded, and they still have the hiring freeze in effect. So to get any position that's gone vacant since the last round of hiring that we have to petition budget and the CAO's office to see what we can fill. So those will have to be prioritized based on the funding that we have in place at this time. So our hands are really still tied in terms of hiring and the budget in that regard. That's my understanding today. That could change by the end of the month. So
Pretty sad.
thank you for all of your efforts and your contacts with city council members and the mayor's office and all of the advocacy that you did. Ms. Robertson was the first one to speak up after they passed the budget. She said, this budget is not where we want to be. It's a disappointment for everyone. And we wish that we could do more. But that's where we're at this point. So let's see what happens come the first of the year. I can't say, but we'll do the best we can to maintain hours at locations that we have right now, backfill priority positions, and keep our doors open as best we can. And I'll come back to you next month once I have more details on this with the financial plan and how we can prioritize those. Try and give you some options. If there are some other ideas that you all have to manage this continued 9% cut to our overall budget, then I'm happy. Let's work together to get it done.
Anything for Garrett or Scott on the finance, the budget, those types of issues?
I have a question. In the report, there are 3 libraries that don't have Saturday hours. I think it was North Avenue, East End, and Holt Street. Is there any possibility that they may get Saturday hours?
So we'll have to see how that works, because the difference between 6 days a week and 5 days a week is a challenge to manage, especially with the hiring freeze. Right now we have vacancies in those places and we can't fill them. We have Adam here from East End, and he's down to 3.5 FTEs, and he's supposed to have 5.5 FTEs. So I don't know how he would, right now we can't really even operate on Saturdays with the limited number of folks. So I would hope that we could put Saturdays on in those locations if we can hire people, but at this time, I don't know how we could manage it.
Is the reason for the closure because of personnel, or was it initially because of circulation or some other issue?
So we looked at branches that were low performers on Saturdays, low foot traffic, low circulation, and we closed them because they weren't being used. And then as time progressed, we lost folks. So we didn't have staff to maintain a standard operation 6 days a week at those locations. So the one thing led to another. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
It's kind of one thing I would wonder about. Barbara, you might be able to weigh in on this a little bit. I don't know, at those particular branches, you say the traffic's not as heavy on Saturdays compared to some of the other branches, I assume, is where that's coming in. How does that compare, though, with their traffic on other days of the week? Should we look at some of those maybe being closed on a Tuesday or Wednesday and then open on a Saturday?
Yeah, we could look at a schedule where we're open on Saturdays and Sundays and closed during the week.
Yeah.
Because Saturdays and Sundays
I think
are
that's brilliant. I
busy
think that
days.
is brilliant.
The challenge with that is the way we pay people, because of the way the way the city calculates wages and time periods.
Adam's shuddering over there right now at the thought that.
Well, so pre-pandemic, the big draw on Saturdays were meetings and programs.
Right.
When we didn't have a meeting or program, it was dead.
Right.
Once we got into the pandemic, it was still a marked difference between during the week and Saturdays.
Okay.
So especially until we can start having in-person programs at the branch, I honestly don't foresee a lot of need on a Saturday right now, not allocation.
Well, it
I believe
seems,
you, but you mean a Monday is busier than a Saturday?
Mondays are rocking.
Are
Yeah.
That's
they?
our busiest
Are
day of the
they?
week. Yep.
Okay, oh.
Yeah, Mondays are traditionally the busiest day of the week.
Oh,
Is that
interesting.
partly because of Friday and Saturday being closed, maybe? Or, no, it just happens that
No.
Mondays are,
Yeah, I learning all the time.
Right.
There's really no, I can't explain it. Mondays are usually busy. Tuesday, Thursdays are often busy because those are meetings. When we have meeting rooms running,
Okay.
those are busy days. Wednesdays take a dip. When I first came to Virginia, it was blamed on church night. I don't know if that's still in existence. It could be. But for some reason, Wednesdays are slower. Then Fridays and Saturdays are mixed. We open at 10 on Saturdays, and usually you don't see people showing up until noon. And you'll be busy from noon to 3 or 4 o'clock, and then it dies out. Because if you think about how your family ebbs and flows with the time,
Yeah.
you're not unlike anybody else. So Saturdays can be those days that are not too busy. But Sundays, if you're open on Sundays and you establish a regular, consistent opening on Sundays from 1 to 5, those can be very busy. because that's the one day of the week where you usually don't have anything going on. And you can get out and do something. So you can pursue leisure or education or cultural activities on a Sunday. I'm not sure, we can definitely look at like adjusting a schedule, and maybe the branches close on Saturday and they open on Sunday. There are library systems that do that. I would be curious to see how that would work out. I do notice that traditionally in my experience, Sundays in the summer are usually slow.
Yeah.
Most people are gone. Basically from mid-June to August, things are slow on those Sundays, and even Saturdays are usually dead in the summer. So if we're adjusting to how people are using us, then those would be things to consider as well.
Yeah.
I'm open-minded when it comes to hours. I've looked at them
Yeah.
lots of different ways,
Sure.
and I agree with you all that we need to be open when people need to use us. So looking at later evening hours, I mean, I look back at the history library, we used to be open till 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how that all worked. I remember 9 o'clock at night, and we would sometimes be busy up until 9 o'clock in the libraries that I've worked in. I have not seen that in Virginia.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that it couldn't happen. Again, those are things that we can adjust and try and see if they work. Do some pilots. I would love to see Sundays come back. I think it may be a while until we see Sundays come back, but we would, just like we turned the lights off, we'll turn them on kind of in the same order we turned them off.
Well,
So
and-
there's a concern, the branches that are closed on Saturdays are in largely minority districts of areas.
Mhm.
And I'm, to be honest, it looks like, from a minority perspective, it looks like the libraries aren't open on Saturdays because they're not filling the needs of the population.
Mhm.
So I'm glad to see you doing this survey. I would hope that this survey is targeted, toward those populations in those areas to see what their needs are, to see if they're being met, and then, that would justify the Saturday openings, and perhaps that could be an argument to go for more money or whatever have you.
Right.
But I when I first saw the ones that were closed, and I said, look at where they are, I mean, it sends a not positive message.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Well, if that's a consideration, then we can look at prioritizing that. Maybe we change different days of the week. We close on the days that are less busy, and we open on Saturday and Sunday and see how that goes.
Strategic plan
Yeah,
item.
it is sort of. Well, I think Sharon's got a good point, particularly with Hull Street, that Hull Street was always our busiest Sunday,
Uh,
wasn't it?
No.
I thought Hull Street did.
Broad Rock
Broad
was,
Rock. I'm
Broad
sorry,
Rock
Broad
was,
Rock.
so originally Broad Rock was the pilot on
All right, for
Sundays.
Sundays, Broad Rock, I'm sorry.
And they saw steady usage on Sundays. However, that built up over time.
Right,
And so it's been turned off now for a while, so it's going to take a
To get
while
back.
for it to get built
Right.
up. We started Ginter Park and Main Library about
Sunday.
2 years ago, and we were starting to build things up here. The other piece is you have to have programs going on those
Yeah,
days.
yeah,
That brings
yeah,
people in as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
So I need people to organize those programs with the resources that we have. Right now, we don't have the people to do the programs to get people in. So now you see how I've got this chicken and egg situation going on. So being resource deprived the way we've been over the last 2 years, it's going to be difficult to get that engine started again. And with this budget, again, it's going to be difficult. And now that they've tied our hands behind our back again with the hiring freeze, we can try and open,
I understand.
and we'll meet that need that we're open, but we won't, I'll be surprised how the usage changes. I'm happy to,
So can we help in any way? We obviously the budget is what the budget is at this point. But as far as those frozen positions, can we appeal at all to put some pressure on the CAO and that group to allow? We have the money to pay for some of those spots now, even though they're frozen, right?
not according to their budget.
No, okay,
Not according to their
so when they
documentation.
froze it, they took the money
They've
away,
frozen
too.
the positions. Now, they haven't, they've frozen the position, they didn't take the positions away.
But they took the money from them away.
Often they take the position away.
Okay.
So you not only lose the money, but you lose the position. Then you got to start all over from zero. So we still have those positions in the budget, but they aren't funded. So they aren't funded according.
I have one other question, Scott. I saw that there's an effort now being made to work with the Richmond Public Schools. And I'm thinking when our kids go back into school that there's going to be a greater push because they've already documented the loss that our students have experienced. So is there any way, like any other group can also help us too with some of that, I guess networking to kind of help us push for trying to get some of our positions open? Because I'm just thinking our children are going to need our libraries open as much as we can make it, and what's going to work for the families to be able to get over this hurdle in education that we've got coming our way.
That advocacy is going to have to happen at the council level and at the mayor's level. The advocacy that we did with the budget, that's where that happens. I mean, we work with Richmond Public Schools as much as we can. Their challenge is to get their schools open, and I don't know what resources they can provide us. So I'm trying to understand what you're describing, and how we can go about doing what you're asking.
I mean, I can imagine something like tutoring, opening the library for tutoring opportunities, because all kids can't necessarily stay after school, but maybe they could come in on Saturdays for tutoring or something of that nature.
Well, we absolutely have the space available, and if Richmond Public Schools can provide the tutors, we can provide that space. So we have tried that in the past. We haven't had a lot of success with it. We had a homework help program probably, how long ago was that, Clay? 10 years ago?
Around 8 years, yes.
Yeah, we built a formal program with Richmond Public Schools where we found funding to provide tutors in our buildings, and we just had problems keeping tutors in those positions and students arriving, and some of the issues didn't work out well. So we had to abandon that program. I'm happy to try it again. If we could get the schools to partner with us as we did that in the past, that may be a solution. We did try tutoring during the pandemic, virtual tutoring with our staff and volunteers, and we stopped it because we had very little need for it, because we didn't have a lot of people signing up. Because mainly the students were doing all of the tutoring at home, right? So they had an in-person tutor on the computer all day long. So they didn't want to stay in a virtual format. That would probably change if we had in-person, and we would have to build it up. The example of where we have pretty good success with this is at Broad Rock. And what other branches are running homework help? I know we've had some things at maybe Belmont, North Avenue we've had help. I don't think we've had any homework help at East End.
We had 2 years ago. We had for a short while, but it wasn't as successful as we had hoped.
Right. So we are trying to do those things. The piece that I don't know that's connecting is the promotion in the schools and the connection to the parents. So those are the pieces that kind of have to come together. We're happy to provide the resource in our space if we can get the partners to help us. But if...
Yeah, I think Sharon's bringing up a lot of really good points. I think we need to revisit them in fairly short order. Barbara, you too. We can't have the 3 poor areas. We just can't have that. Now, maybe today is not the time to fix it, but over the summer, let's come up with the right set of things to do. Yeah.
And some of
And
that.
Sharon, let's have you think really hard about it.
Yeah. And some of it may come down to having to get staff from other branches, fill in at some of these, and shorten the hours.
The solution that we're going to use to start keeping things open is we're going to use temps. So we'll hire temporary people, and if we have to do that and open our branches like that, we'll gladly do that.
We
And I'll
don't
have
have
the
to
branch
this
managers
second
figure
figure it out,
out
but we have
how
to
to run a
figure it out.
schedule to
Yeah.
get us open 6 days a week. And if we overrun our temporary budget line, then we'll overrun our temporary budget line.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what to say,
No,
because,
that's-
you know,
we
you
don't have
make
a
a good
solution.
point. Let's do that.
And I think what both Chris and Sharon are sort of saying too is, if we're gonna starve any of the libraries, it shouldn't be those three.
Right.
I mean,
I
to
mean, one
some extent.
consideration is we close all the branches on Saturdays and we just have Maine open. That would be a
Or we-
solution as well.
We close Belmont and West End because, you know, we'll rotate. One's open on one Saturday, one's open on the other, and that lets one other one be open. You know, I don't know. I'm just saying that we just
Yeah.
gotta be creative and look at how to do that, I think. Okay, any other ones on the finance questions, discussion we want to have? Barbara, did that answer? You feel good?
It did. It's a great start. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Garrett, thank you. Janet, we've got you there. Janet, if we can get you to jump in and do the facilities
Sure.
report?
I miss all of you. I wish I could see your faces. So, hi. So we had a very long Zoom meeting on May 7th. I think it was over 2 hours. So we put a lot of time into that meeting, and we got to meet the architects and their staff, which I thought was very helpful. So I have some notes here, and I'll just read you what I wrote down. So we talked a long time about guiding principles. And these will be useful for us when we get into outreach and fundraising. So as we design our new building, the things we want it to be or to have, we want it to be inclusive. We want it to be a reflection of the community. We want it to be so attractive that people want to visit, and they want to bring their out-of-town relatives to visit. We want exhibit and activity space. We want it to be net zero. We want it to be fun. We want it to have spaces that people like to be in because of the lighting or the decor. We talked about the old building and how do we want to recognize that there is an old building inside of our new building. I don't think we resolved that. We just talked about it. And I think those were the main things. And maybe when I'm done, Gail will want to add something. We then spent a lot of time on that survey. We really picked it apart. And I'm sorry that we didn't see that meeting rooms were not on there, because those are pretty important. So we did pick it apart, and some of us felt like it was too long and that people aren't going to be patient enough to go through the whole thing. So I'll be curious to see how that works out when we finally set it free. That is most of my notes. I could have missed big things when I stepped out of the room to do something else, but I'm sure Scott and Gail can fill in.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Lots of ideas thrown out. When we talked about some of the challenges I mentioned, access was a popular suggestion, but also presents some challenges. Staffing and AD access were mentioned. So it was kind of a laundry list of desires kicked around. I think they have a lot of things in mind. They threw out some issues like funding opportunities, coffee shops, those kinds of things that Scott, I think, has had experience with that, pros and cons to that as well. So access is always going to be on the top list of interest. Reality is going to be something else. Janet mentioned the old building within the new building. He mentioned in particular, I think his, the one architect's vision of walking in and how much does this part of the building, the old Dooley part, how important is that for us to maintain this area as is? So there's a lot of space but not necessarily used well. So that's going to be a consideration. And those government documents, 10,000 boxes of them. Scott keeps thinking about other possibilities for locating those. I do tell the story when I'm promoting library, the different parts of this library in particular. I tell my story about the 1913, I think Clay may confirm this, government document they found in a battle with the railroad where the library won. So there are good things in there. It's just, I know they're going through a process of evaluating retention and all those things. We don't need to keep parking tickets. So working on, as Bill mentioned, reducing collections that are not necessary to keep anymore and making judgments about how we use the library in the 21st century. So, good job. Do we have a date for the June meeting?
I haven't heard yet. The key thing is we're working on is the survey.
Okay.
So I think once we kind of get that going, that'll be the big focus for June. I'd like to launch that in June and spend pretty much those 4 weeks in June getting feedback on what they want, what people want to see from their library. So that'll be very helpful. I know that they were still working on gathering electronic drawings of the building and making measurements and assessments, so that's all part of it as well. And they are supposed to assist us with kind of gathering together and kind of figuring out when we're going to have the community meetings. So there'll be a mixture of community meetings in person and virtual. So we'll continue kind of, even if we're coming out of COVID, we'll allow participation, just like we're doing this meeting, broadcast it so people who maybe not be able to come down here and meet in person could still observe and participate.
Get more participation.
Already the first big thing that comes up is parking.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Right,
parking
that was
is
a
going to
big
be an
issue.
issue that has to get tackled in this plan.
Mm-hmm.
So
Is there already a plan for how the survey will be distributed?
So what we're working on is electronic version and paper version. Paper version, we would like to have people distribute them. You all take some, hand them to your friends, get people. We're going to use QR codes. People can click onto them. Again, incentives to try and get people to complete them. I'm going to take them around to all the city council members and mayor's office, and I'm happy to go. We're going to ask branch managers to post it on the Nextdoor and Facebook and all of our social media platforms. It'll be a pop-up on our website, so when people come in to use a computer, it'll pop up and ask them to complete it that way. Those are the kind of the rundown of the quick things we're thinking right now.
Big stack of copies in this library, I assume.
Yeah, we'll have stacks of copies people can take.
Well, Richmond Public Schools is still doing meal distribution,
We could try and see if we can get it in there.
That's a good idea.
The challenge with Richmond Public Schools is they're often very unwilling to distribute our flyers and things. Yes. Yeah.
Sharon, that might be one.
Sharon, when I first joined the board, there was a line item for a school board representative. Mm-hmm. No one ever showed up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could go on from there.
Yeah, usually the school districts are, and we've encountered this with Richmond, it depends on the principal. So if our branch manager can get the principal to distribute flyers and things like that, we can have luck. it depends throughout the system of how we can do that.
The principal has a boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I will say that the administration does promote us. Superintendent Cameras will on his tweeting or his Facebook or even on their website, they promote things. Flyers are just more difficult. And I think it's because the schools get inundated with flyers and they just kind of say no to all of them. But, you know, as a partner, you would think that we would get a little preferential treatment, but it just depends.
Scott, let me ask on the facilities. So the collecting all of this in June, they'll start analyzing and doing stuff. Are they aware, or do we have any realistic expectation or hope that we'll have some preliminary info by the time we do the 3-board meeting as far as
the goal is to
cost?
have this done by the end of August.
Okay.
So
It's still, I mean,
I
we're
think
on target still.
we'll probably have some community meetings in June.
Okay.
We've kind of been waiting to see what's happening with the COVID and the survey and how we're going to distribute it. So
Good.
through probably mid-June to July, we'll be having those in-person meetings and asking for more feedback. All along, they're going to be working on design and looking at plans.
Okay.
In August, they'll come back to us, or in late July, they'll come back to us with, hey, here's what we're thinking at. Give us your input on these plans. And then end of August, that's their target date. I mean, Janitor Gail can correct me, but August is when they're supposed to have the final phase drawings and plans complete.
Okay, good. That would be
So
fantastic.
that would line up with the September 11th meeting where we can present images and kind of walk through. They'll also give us cost estimates and make recommendations on how you could phase the project if it can't all be done at first. So if we get a call from, you know, federal, you know, Mayor Stoney or City Council saying, hey, we've got this $160 million, could the library use some money? I would hope we could have a phase that we could say that, yeah, we could do something like that.
We're hoping we can go to them before they
Right.
are even asking and say, hey.
Well, that's the whole point behind getting them to help us do the survey. So I would hope that those city council people would share that information with their constituents, help us gather information. We can then revisit them and say, awesome, thank you for helping us gather this information. Here's our plan. What would you think about helping us fund it?
Good,
Yeah.
good. Well
So,
done.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else on facilities at this point? Emily, anything on governance today?
No,
Things have
it's
been pretty quiet, I know, so okay, thank you. We are actually running close to our time, but let's skip unfinished business for just a minute and quickly cover on the new business one, the closure date for Juneteenth. Scott, do you want to say anything about it? I think we need to take a quick vote on whether we are closed for that or not. Does anyone feel there's a need to discuss, or do we just vote?
Juneteenth is a new, it's not a new holiday, it's a holiday that's been around, but it'll be observed this year at a state level and a city level. The city is observing it on Friday, but actually Juneteenth is on a Saturday. I think we should observe the actual holiday of Juneteenth as well as what the city's observing, so that's, I'm requesting us close on the actual day instead of just
So with Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday.
Okay. That's when we probably need to take a quick vote. So if I can get a motion from someone that we close for both the 19th and 20th of June, no, the 18th and 19th of June for Juneteenth. Anybody want to make a
I
motion?
move that we vote to close libraries on the 18th and 19th of June.
Okay,
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed?
No,
I'm sorry, what, Janet?
I said no.
Oh, okay. Okay, very good. Okay, then let's go back real quickly. Scott, do we want to talk a little bit about the current strategic plan? We're going to be developing the new strategic plan, and this June survey is going to be a big help with that, we hope, as far as looking for what our customer base, or what our citizen base may not currently be customers, you know, what they really need, and that'll help us position for the next 5 years a little bit. But do we want to walk through the current plan and just discuss, take maybe 5 to 10 minutes here and just get through the first beginning of it, checking off a little bit of it? We do need to review this, and that I'd like everyone to try to look at it at home. It is hard to look at. It is a spreadsheet that is.
Do you all
it's just
recall
awkward.
this document? It's coming up. Hold on a second. I'm gonna put it on the big screen and share it with everybody, and try to make it bigger if I can. My Zoom is not cooperating.
Okay. So what we're hoping to do is actually review this plan, the current plan, knock that out between this meeting and June's meeting, so that we say, okay, we've covered everything, we know what hasn't been done, and Scott's staff is working on sort of getting updates on everything still, right?
We are trying.
Like,
Yeah, this document actually has been updated by all of our managers. I'm trying to get my Zoom to kind of work properly. As you can see, it's pretty extensive.
It's colorful.
It's colorful, and the colors mean something. So green means it's something that's in process. Yellow means it's been stalled or kind of stuck. Red means it's stopped. Black means it's discontinued. And then blue is like completed. So we've done those things. And so what we've done is we've taken all of the goals in the strategic plan, and mapped them to this dashboard, and we track it year to year. We've done this the whole 5 years that we've had the strategic plan. So we ask everybody to continue to give us information. Can you all see that first one? All right, I'm gonna try.
I've got old eyes.
Me too.
No,
Can't see anything.
And I left my glasses in the car. I don't use them for anything but driving sometimes.
yeah.
Those, my distance lines. Do you want to just talk through, like, take topics? Okay, here's what it is, and here's our current status on it.
Well, there's
I know there's a lot of them to do that with.
probably,
Why don't we run down to the first yellow and see where we're stalled? I think, you know, if green is good, we're moving along on it, is the assumption, we're making progress. I would think the yellows are the ones where we're stalled, and the question is, why are we stalled, and do we want to fix that, or do we change the priority on it?
so one of the things is strengthen partnership with Richmond Public Schools. We had a brief
Yep.
discussion on that.
Excellent example.
Already. I'm not sure where the strategy with Richmond Public Schools is with the city. There's, you know, they had this education compact in the beginning when I came here. It was regularly meeting. That group hasn't met with the subgroups in several months now during the pandemic. I think council and the mayor have met a few times, and the school board have met, but during the pandemic, everything has kind of been stalled on that. So, again, that one just kind of continues to go along.
Do we need to have a board member, right now, your staff's doing a good job of trying to get things done, and they're working through that?
Right, so they're working in the
Do we need to have a
field.
board member who has school experience sort of lead an effort in that respect, as far as getting with someone in administration, and how can we work, what do they need, what are we hoping for? I think Scott's team can give you a lot of what we've tried to do and what we're hoping to get from them.
Yeah, I think we've provided some detail in our past board reports on the actions that we've taken, and we've worked with them. They don't say no to those people. They work with them as best they can. It's just kind of a global strategy hasn't been able to be developed.
There's been a
Is
lot
there
of,
one liaison that y'all are currently working with, any one person that?
So the schools now have a group of people, the Outreach and Engagement Committee, who you get assigned to work with when you want to help them. And so those are the groups that we've been meeting with, kind of at a upper level. Then in the field level, it's those relationships in the branches that have kind of been the ones where we have the most success. And you know, our our youth services manager here at Maine and our young adult librarian have pretty good communication with the media center specialist and their programming. But you know, for the last 18 months, we've been stuck in COVID.
Yeah.
So coming out of COVID, I'm hopeful that we can improve on this relationship and we can kind of mesh in better with Richmond Public Schools strategy, and just keep working at it the way we've been working at it. And if we can get some support from the Office of Engagement in the school system, or more globally, that would be great.
Okay.
So.
The global thing, I think, Sharon, is what I'd love to see. That right now, librarians do a great job, but they're having to repeat this over and over from school to school. And, you know, it would be nice if it could be one discussion and then it passed down to them a little bit. I mean, it still has to have those relationships, but it shouldn't be having to sell them on each and every thing, or for that matter, find out what they need. The school system should have some priorities. I would hope that they think we can help with.
Okay.
So 11B kind of hits on that. It's yellow. It says relationships with community information services will need to be reestablished once schools open. So this hits this one. I'll keep reading here. Youth Services Associates, LCSMs at all branches develop relationships and partnerships where possible at RPS neighborhood elementary schools. So that's the ongoing action that we continue to work to help try and get this strategy done, collaborate with communities and schools to establish a link to elementary school and Richmond Public Schools. So that's the action we're taking there. 11C, develop a targeted program for all second grade students to get a library card as they transition to third grade when learning to read with transitions. So we have an electronic library card now available, so all library card accounts are fine free. So those are big steps that we've taken in this initiative. I would have loved to have seen a lot of school districts have like a student ID card. Sometimes they have a student ID card with a barcode on it. I've been told that Richmond Public Schools doesn't have a global student ID card. I have not been able to verify that.
Not really. They all have a student Gmail account. Though.
Right.
So some kind of way that technology could probably be associated.
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of large library systems, they just turn their student ID card into a library card, and that just instantly works. And then you share records, so you do a merge, and you can merge students into your database that way. We don't have that capacity with Richmond Public Schools. So the electronic card is how we've managed it now. And, you know, that electronic card will get them into the electronic resources right away. They can start checking things out. And then once they visit a library, we convert that electronic card right into their regular library card. So in some ways that has been fixed. I mean, you can see we've implemented a procedure for online registration. So I feel like that's been a real success. So here's the one that Gail just hit on that's all in red. Revive the school board member attendance at Richmond Public School Board meetings. Let me tell you, that one's red. That's not a new one. That's not something that's been evolved in the last 10 years. This goes back for decades of school board members not showing up or participating with the library board. I think possibly in the 50s and 60s, the school board maybe worked with it, but since, you know, for the last, I don't know when the last time we had a school board member show up routinely at our board meeting. Have they ever done it?
I've been sitting here 15 years, and it's been a lot of discussion that it's hard to get. It would be a great solution if there was a liaison at least assigned to come to the meetings.
Yeah.
And
So I was going to say, though, do you think maybe the issue here is we're asking for a school board member and we should try to get one of the council liaison
maybe
members?
that would be nice, or, you know, to get them to come. And But yeah, 15 years. But a liaison might be a good idea.
And we've had the same discussion. Wouldn't it be nice that the school board members show up for 15 years?
That and the law library fines. I've heard about that a lot too.
That one's kind of gone away for a while. Why did you bring it up?
Yeah. Just hope it doesn't come back to bite us still.
The funding for the law libraries.
I'm going to suggest
They never
that
charged us or something. It was
maybe
very weird.
I can do it, or if someone else feels they should, make an approach to Andres Addison as somebody who used to work in a library,
Yeah.
city council member,
Ask-
and see if his liaison
Yeah.
would be willing to come in via Zoom. It's not a lot, not a big ask. If, person, great, but if not, at least would they be interested in Zooming on it?
And if you got a liaison from the school board, not just city council.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
yeah, school board, we need to do
School
the same,
board,
yeah.
So my network connection
So
failed,
I don't
so I
know
probably
who
dropped off of
was.
Zoom. Have I disappeared on Zoom out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my connection has dropped, so
Oh, okay.
the Wi-Fi routinely drops in this building. So
Broadband request.
Who's a good school board member for someone to talk to?
I will say that we have,
Kristen Larson used to be on the school board, and she's on city council.
yeah,
Guys, one thing I wanted to add, if I could, I'm actually sitting here texting with Shonda Harris Muhammad, who's on the school board in 6th District. And I'm asking her questions about like, how can you get engaged? And she said that she would be interested in doing so.
Great.
Great.
Problem solved.
Sign her up.
See, Sharon, what a good job you're doing? Yeah. Yay, Garrett.
Okay. Scott, you've lost connection, so we're sort of stuck. We don't need to see it. Can you see it yourself, though, what the next one or two are before we adjourn things here? I can't read it. It's too small.
so that was the electronic library
Yeah.
card.
The attendance you just had.
The next one that is red. Provide parenting and education early literacy skills in partnership with the Office of Community Wealth Building's Kellogg Foundation grant. So that was a grant that we achieved several years ago, and the funding has concluded on it. One of the things that we had was a program at Gilpin and Creighton Court that wound down after the funding stopped. We had an RPL parent resource educator and a retired, and that person retired in 2016. So that one has been kind of, that's where it stopped. We have recently, the children's person here at Maine reviewed and added new parenting family care books to collections because we had some libraries in those locations. So we have updated those since that time, but that one has kind of just closed out.
Are you saying you used to work with the Office of Community Wealth Building?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they have a nice center over at Huguenot now. I don't know, were y'all involved in that, or did it end before?
No, we never
that?
were involved in that at Huguenot. We were only involved at Gilpin and Creighton. That was the target for the Kellogg grant funding. So we had a program running there for those 4 or 5 years that we had that funding. And then a report was created from that Kellogg grant that assessed early childhood literacy in the Richmond area. We did some pretty successful work around that. We worked with a grade level reading program. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That was an initiative to try and get youth to catch up to grade level reading and achieve success on their 3rd grade PAL scores. That program evolved after I came here. It became less Richmond specific and it became more area specific. And when they did that, it hasn't been as successful as it was when it was just targeted in Richmond. So I'm not sure where we're at in early childhood literacy in the community. We haven't, a lot of the people who were involved in that process at the time when I first got here are no longer here. And so for that, United Way has changed, Community Fund, everyone who was here when I got here is mostly not here anymore. So that program, the Early Childhood Literacy Initiative, is kind of, it's kind of, not to say stalled, but it's not as focused as it was with those Kellogg dollars in it. So I think we got the funding, but I don't know that it had enough capacity to sustain itself after the funding went away. So we still carry on with the efforts that we have in early childhood. So we have RVA Reads, which is our huge one. I mean, that's one where we have somebody working in the, Barbara Crump working in our Head Starts and preschools, providing at-home libraries for youth in those programs. And also, the mentors are involved in doing story times, and that program has been successful, and we're still really working hard to keep that one going. Would I love to see early literacy expand and do more things? Absolutely, I would love it. We need more capacity to do that, and we've been just resource starved and starved in terms of staffing. So until we can kind of restore some of those things, we're at that point. So that takes us through the first strategy. So maybe next month we can look at the next strategy, or if you want to take an in-depth look at this overall chart where we're at, then we can revisit it next month.
Let's move to the next, yeah.
You want to do next month?
No,
Okay.
next month. But I'm going to ask, it's a tough chart to work with on the screen here, as we were hoping it was going to be a little bit easier today. And it's really difficult to work with the printed copy of it, even when it's done as 11 by 17, it is still very small. So what I'm going to ask is that for the next meeting, if everyone could try to look at this, you've got links to it, have been sent out to everybody at least once. If you don't have it, we'll send it out again, because I know sometimes these things get lost.
Well, the one we're looking at is the most current version.
Right.
It's been updated this year. So the one that's on the website is last year's version.
Okay,
So
can we send out the
we'll
most
send
current?
out we'll send it out as a PDF, which I think will shrink it down.
Can we send it as both PDF and in Excel?
We can try. I don't know how big the Excel is.
Okay, just some of us are going to find it easier to
Sure.
work in the Excel possibly.
Okay.
But anyway, let's send it out. If we could all try to just skim through, we're not going to belabor each and every point along here. There's just too much to get done as we get ready to do the new one with it. But look at the things that catch your attention, that say, here's something that I think we need to focus on, or here's something that I think we can just scratch off and say, done, we don't need to do it, or it's not within our current scope, thinking about budget and things, it's taking on more than we need to, or just let's put it out there to think about as we put the new plan together, okay? And we'll just try to walk through as much of that as we can at next month's meeting. We'll try to maybe abbreviate the reports even a little bit more in order to give us 30 or 40 minutes to really walk through that, okay? Any questions for anyone? We're running right on the 1 o'clock.
Can I make one quick
Absolutely,
comment?
Chris.
This has been an eye-opening year. We need to look at the strategic plan with equity, inclusion, and diversity in mind. We need to make sure we're doing the right things, and if we're not, we need to do them.
Yeah.
It was not something that we were all keenly aware of in the past. Now, if you don't think about it every day, you're crazy. So.
And I'll mention in my discussions with Scott that y'all have talked about too, Chris, the whole DEI, along with being what we need to be doing to serve the community correctly.
It's the right thing for us to be doing, yeah.
It is also something which will factor into the foundation's fundraising efforts. It's going to be critical for funding from the council, from the money that's coming from this $160 million the city's going to get, all those kind of things. That it really is important from both perspectives of what's right and also what's practical. So I think we do need to do that, Chris. Okay, I'm going to ask for someone to make a motion that we adjourn then. Since we're in person, I think we have to do that.
Move to adjourn?
Okay, on a second?
Second.
Okay, Chris, thank you. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? We are adjourned, thank you. Oh, and this, one last thing, I'm going to send out an email. Laura didn't mention it, but there is an online FOIA training session coming up. It's about an hour and a half to 2 hours, less than 2 hours, they promise, that the city is doing via Microsoft Teams. If you can do it, it would be great, just so you know.
Good day for me.
Okay.